the temperature also, that temperature change that you experience, the animals start making the noises like it's nighttime, birds are chirping, insects are making noises. It definitely does feel like it's about nighttime, but it's only for a few minutes. Welcome to the Cosmos Safari podcast presented by Celestron. In this episode, my co-host, the Last Minute Astronomer, and I discuss the upcoming total solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024, and our personal experiences and lessons learned during the 2017 total solar eclipse. I'm Dave.
And I'm Rob, the Last Minute Astronomer, and we're going to talk about the 2024 eclipse. Finally, Dave. Finally, we're getting together and actually talking about this. I'm very, very excited about this one. I did the one back in 2017, and I highly recommend 5 stars. Do it again. And so that's what we're doing. How about you?
Definitely, man. I had a blast in 2017. I've been trying to encourage everybody I know to make sure that they get a chance to go out and see the 2024 eclipse, whether that be actually going to travel and seeing it in, totality, or even if you have to stay home and you're not going to be able to be in totality, to just have the right equipment so that you can safely view the partial. No matter what, it's a great experience. And I'm excited because this time I'm going to be able to bring my family with me. Last time it was just me. But this time is going to be extra special with my family along for the ride.
I want to talk a little bit about the 2017 eclipse that we both went to. But before we do that, I've got a little trivia for you, a little pre-launch checkout for you. All right,
let's do it.
So I've got 3 questions right here. I'm going to see if you can get them correct. As far as eclipses go, it's been estimated that only about 1 in every blank people will see a total solar eclipse in their lifetime. What do you think that number is? 1 in every how many?
1 in 100. 1%.
No. Got to go higher.
1 in 1,000.
1 in 10,000 people will see a total solar eclipse. Right? And that honestly makes sense, right? Because it's so few people, because you have to be in the area, right? Like you have to travel to that place, and it's such a small thing. So I actually thought that was a little small, but I don't know. That's me. All right, next one. The 2024 eclipse has a maximum duration of totality of what? What is the maximum duration of totality?
I know where I'm going to be. It's over 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And I believe I remember seeing in Mexico, it was going to be over 4 minutes. I can't remember by how much, but I know it wasn't dramatically more. So I'm going to say 4 minutes and 15 seconds.
That's pretty close. I'll give it to you. You were 13 seconds off. It's 4 minutes and 28 seconds.
Oh, it is almost half. Okay. Halfway to 5.
Yeah. And I believe that's either that's in Mexico. That's where that's happening.
Yes.
All right. Last one here. It's a 2-parter. The path of the 2024 eclipse that's coming up. How long is the whole path in miles from beginning to end? And then how long do you think the United States part from Texas to Maine, how long is that going to be?
Are we including ocean in addition to land?
Yes.
Okay.
So the entire path and then just the United States.
I'm going to go with, for the entire path, 5,000 miles.
No, 9,200 miles.
Wow, much longer than I thought.
Yes.
So is that quite a bit over the ocean then on either direction, I'd imagine?
Yeah, I think definitely more on the Pacific side, because the maximum totality is in Mexico. So, and there's a little bit up past.
Now that Finland. You say that, because that's like central, right? On the eclipse path, the maximum would be in the center. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Exactly.
And then how much over the United States? Well, that helps me a lot just to think of it that way. So I'm going to go with 2,500 miles.
2,142. Good job. Yeah, so I mean, that's going from Texas up to Maine.
I'm trying to think like orientation wise, it's kind of tilted from Texas through Pennsylvania where we live, and then up through by the Great Lakes, and then it's out into Canada. So, I know approximately how far it is to get to Florida, and I kind of tilted on the angle then to kind of think through that. So
yeah,
hard questions, but thank you for that. That's helpful. When we come back from this short break, myself and Rob reflect on the do's and don'ts that we learned through our experience with the 2017 total solar eclipse.
There's no better way to see the eclipse than with Celestron Eclipse Smart. Choose from observing kits featuring solar shades, eclipse glasses, 2x magnification solar viewers, a photo filter, and more. Every item includes solar-safe filter technology, independently lab tested to ensure it conforms to ISO 12312-2 safety standards. Observe smart. Observe Eclipse Smart. Learn more at celestron.com/eclipsewatch.
Stay tuned to learn more about how to enter to win a 4-piece solar eclipse glasses observing kit and solar binoculars for our Eclipse Smart giveaway.
When I went in 2017, my son was, I think, so he was 3. He was 3 years old.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, it was his first plane ride. So we get on the plane. We actually made a vacation out of it because it was the last week before school. We visited some friends down in Georgia, or cousins down in Georgia. Saw my friend as well. He was in the area. So we got to hang out with people, made sort of a whole week of it. We flew down, because we had the whole week to do it. And, driving down to South Carolina just is not appealing to me. But it was a great time. There was a lot of eclipse stuff going on in South Carolina. Like, we went down to the city and there were some markets, and then you saw different people with eclipse stuff that they were making. I don't have it with me. I have like a decal for one of my Yeti mugs that is like totally eclipse, and it's got the date and stuff. There are people selling, I got a bow tie, an eclipse bow tie down there in Columbia. It was neat to just fly down there and immerse yourself in an area and then have a really cool event at the same time. Now you didn't fly, right?
No, I didn't. I decided to drive, and I drove from my home in Pennsylvania all the way to Land of the Lakes, Kentucky, which I, just looked for a campground that had an opening, and that's where I ended up. And kind of similar to what you did, I was able to visit a friend, or at least that was the plan. And we'll talk a little more about that later. But long story short, it was a long drive. I stayed at a campground. I was in a tent, and it was extremely hot, like 96, 97 degrees. And so my sweltering experience was somewhat different than your experience, I believe.
Well, I didn't know you were in a tent. Like, I thought you didn't have a camper back then, did you?
I had a camper. I decided not to use it, which is a terrible choice.
Oh, ouch. Yeah. I'll tell you what, It was, we got lucky because we had an Airbnb. And Danielle would never camp anyway. Maybe not never, but mostly never. Definitely not in 95-degree weather. But so we got the Airbnb, and we got one right on Lake Murray, down in Columbia. So we found one, and I just asked before I booked it, I was like, is there a clear view up in the sky? Can you send me some pictures? And it worked out. It was good. But the best part is that I had air conditioning. It was phenomenal.
Nice.
It was great because I could go out in the morning. It was already like 85 degrees in the morning, but I could go out and just set all my stuff up. And by, I think it was like 1:00 or something was when the partial started. And by that time I had everything set up, and then I could go cool off in the house. I could go sit under some air conditioning, have some nice iced tea or whatever. So that was nice. I had all my camera stuff set up, and the best part was in that Airbnb, there was a skylight, and it was just perfectly aligned that we could look up and just see the eclipse from inside the house and monitor it. Not that we
let me just interrupt here for a second and give you a different taste of what I did, which I had an umbrella that I could sit under and keep myself out of the sun, which was really nice. I did get a chance to set up all my telescopes, and I was surrounded by hundreds of other people in the campground who had no idea what they were looking at. And so I played the role of explaining what it is they were looking at for the vast majority of my day, which I thought was great. I set up cameras as well of not just the eclipse, but also of myself and others enjoying the experience. So I think we have some similarities and some very different experiences on the side of our accommodations.
Yeah, I was very pleased. Now, you know me, I love talking to people. I love talking astronomy to people. You know, you get under the stars and you just communicate, you talk, and it's just awesome. But man, it was nice to just be there and be able to focus on just me, my wife, and my son, right? Yep. And that's something that I think you told me that you didn't bring your son along. Well, you didn't have a son at that point.
I did not have a son at that point.
You did not have a son at that point, but I did, and he was 3 years old, and that experience was just cream of the crop. I mean, he was 3, so he didn't.
He remembers it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He remembers it. Yeah. Now it helps that I have a video that I took with lots of different stuff. But like, he remembers it. We had a little workbook. I would definitely advise anybody with kids, you know, get a workbook, like a coloring type of thing about eclipses. And then they learn the words and they understand what's going on a little bit more. Not totally. I mean, in the middle of the eclipse, Soccorso just was like, was that the day? Right? Like, he thought the day ended. Even though we told him what it was going to be, he still felt like the day had ended.
Why is that for people who have never experienced an eclipse? Like, what's happening that would cause him to think that? So the fact that the moon just like covers up the entire surface of the sun, the entire thing. So none of the sunlight that's coming off the surface is actually hitting us, and it's not hitting the air, the atmosphere, which usually scatters it into blue. So it's basically nighttime. I could see Venus. Yep. I could see Jupiter. I think, if I remember correctly, people might have been able to see Mercury, but that's kind of hard to see, and you don't want to waste your time looking for a planet when you've got an eclipse right in front of you. But yeah, it gets really dark. I distinctly remember when, you know, you're looking up at totality, but around you, it looks like a big 360-degree sunset. It's absolutely beautiful. The temperature also, you know, that temperature change that you experience, the animals start making the noises like it's nighttime. Birds are chirping, insects are making noises. It definitely does feel like it's about nighttime, but it's only for a few minutes, right? It's only for 3 or so minutes. And then it's over, and then it's daytime again. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed I actually had temperature sensors, some Vernier temperature sensors, so I could bring data back to my classroom. And I actually tracked it, and it was about a 10-degree drop. Wow. Which, yeah, I could definitely feel it. You know, the sun's not radiating down on you, and it's not radiating everywhere else, so you're going to get a little drop in temperature. So about 10 degrees. I heard the cicadas, maybe a little bit louder than I thought I had, not sure. But the way I think about it is when you get into totality, like, to me, it looked like up in the sky, there was a black hole, right? You know, like you see in Interstellar, not exactly like what you see in Interstellar, but kind of similar. But I agree. Kind of far away, a little blurry-ish. But yeah, you just have this, it's just dark and it's super bright around the outside. And it's just man, it messes with you a little bit. Now, I know you used some camera stuff. You also had some other things that you were doing. You mentioned the temperature sensors. Yes. And I have a video too, which we'll put in the show notes of my experience there. When you're doing the solar filter, you had that on
What scopes did you have with you?
So I had a Schmidt-Cassegrain, an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain, with a solar filter on the front. That gave me the visual telescopic view. I didn't actually take any pictures through the telescope. I had on top of the telescope, I piggybacked my Canon T3i with a solar filter on just a traditional zoom lens. And all of that was tracking with an equatorial mount, so that, just like you said with your tracking mount, that it would follow the sun. So an equatorial mount, for those of you who are kind of new to this, is a mount that is generally used for telescopes and in astronomy, where the one pole of the telescope's axis is pointing towards the North Star. And over the course of 24 hours, the axis will rotate one time in 24 hours. So effectively, it's tracking the Earth's rotation, which is what you're observing when you're watching day and night. So it's like allowing you to keep it in the visual range of your optics. So if you're staring through that with your eyes, or if you're looking at it through a camera lens, it'll just keep it right there on the sensor or right there in your eyepiece.
Yeah. So do you feel like so you use the telescope, do you feel like that was overpowered, or do you feel like you didn't need that, or were you thankful that you had it?
I knew going into it what I needed in terms of the correct eyepiece to use to get the full view of the sun. And I used that mostly for the partial eclipse. So I never actually used the telescope to look at the sun during totality, because I first didn't want to bother taking the solar filter off the front. And it's not really the right tool. During totality, you can just use your eyes and you get a much better experience without, the need for magnification. So I did take pictures with the camera during that time. So I do have some really nice images of totality that I got, but I did focus, I'd say, about half of my time to try to soak it in and experience it with my own eyes. And then about half of the time I spent was to take pictures that I then later was able to process and look back on.
Yeah. I think that's the way to do that.
Right. I got the full lead up all the way to from all the partial phases. I've got totality, and then I've got the end partial phases as well. So I never actually went together and put it into any kind of single image, but I do have the images leading up to and then after the totality.
Yeah. It's well, I'll tell you what, when I was watching it, I did make sure, in fact, I think you warned me beforehand, don't be fumbling with your camera. Don't be fumbling with your camera. That's the last thing that you want to do. And you were absolutely right. One of the things I wanted to do was make sure that I was not spending too much time fumbling with equipment. So I got a program that would connect to my computer and then connect to my camera, which would then take only during totality. It would only take the pictures, or it would take all the pictures I wanted of totality, and then it would shut off, right? It would change all different settings. You could pre-program it all. But the nice thing is that all I had to do was take the shroud off of that. And then basically for the next 2.5 minutes, I was able to enjoy it. I was able to point at things. I was able to show my son what was going on, talk with him. I was able to completely forget to use the binoculars that I brought.
Yep.
Like it was, I had brought binoculars specifically because I was like, I want to go look up. And that's something I don't want to do this time around. I don't want to forget to use the binoculars, because I do want to use a pair of binoculars just real quick and take a look at it. But yeah, it's sometimes you forget those things. I'm going to have a checklist of everything that I'm going to want to do.
Did you do anything with, the partial phases at all?
So if you look at the video, you'll see that I did put them into a continuous video. I didn't know how to keyframe at the time, so it's jiggly. I have a bit of learning to do, but Yeah, other than that little video, I didn't really do the partial pictures all that much.
How about the actual stuff, like with just looking at the ground? For example, I watched for, some of the things you would see, the little partial phases when light passes through, trees and things like that.
Yes. In fact, this is one of my favorite things is I wrote my son's name and then tapped little, you probably can't even see it on here, but all I did was I put little pinholes in the shape of the letters in his name. Nice. So then what I did is during the eclipse, I held this out like this. So the sun's behind me. Okay. The sun's passing by my head, past all those little pinholes. And then I had a white sheet of paper on the floor or on the ground that it was projecting onto. And so then each little pinhole was a little picture of the eclipse, the partial eclipse at that time.
Acting like a little pinhole camera.
Exactly. And that's one of the really cool things about this is you don't need much to just observe it and check it out, right? Those pinhole cameras are pretty good. Now, I did not notice what they say about when the light comes through the trees and all the little leaves, the holes in between the leaves act like pinhole projectors, right? Now, I never saw that at that point, but I have seen that work. In fact, it was during the Effort of Parade. I was in with the scouts and we were marching and there was a light, an LED light above one of the trees, and it showed on the pavement.
Oh, wow.
The actual shape of the lamp.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually going to work. So did you get to see any of those sorts of things?
I didn't bring anything along, but there were some other people around me that had similar things, like colanders are a great thing to use because they're already got the little holes in them. You don't even have to make them. So, people had colanders and that kind of stuff. I saw the shadow bands on the ground, which was phenomenal.
What is that? I don't quite get the shadow bands bit.
There's still some question as to exactly how they're formed, but basically it looks like little snakes almost that are on the ground at a very particular part of the eclipse. Now, I was using an app for this through Solar Eclipse Timer, which we had a previous podcast on with Gordon Telepin. And his app allows you to kind of just sit back and enjoy because it describes everything that's happening in words as you're going, which I believe, did you use that as well?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So that was super helpful. And, that was one of the things we looked at. We looked at like the 360-degree sunset during totality. We looked for the different planets and stuff. We listened and felt, the temperature change, the birds, the bugs, all that kind of stuff. But no, I didn't really bring a whole lot with me. I really was trying to pack light because, as you said, this was the beginning of the school year, and I had to be back at work as a teacher the next day because I actually I had to get a special permission to miss that first day of school when it was the teacher in-service day kickoff. And it required me to go very light.
Tell us, how did that plan work out for you?
Not very great. And this is something that I'm definitely changing this time as we kind of start to talk about some of the changes that I'm going to be making in 2024. So we'll kind of use this as a transition here. My experience on the way home was I hit some major traffic. I had planned on going to a friend's house for dinner. His wife created this beautiful Italian meal for us. Didn't show up to his house till 2:00 in the morning because I hit 6 accidents and about, I think it was 8 hours of driving or something like that till I got to his house. He had to work the next day, so he's like, "Here's your meal, warm it up. There's
here,
towel,
have some food, go take a nap,
get a shower, and I'll see you in the morning." That we're changing this time. We're actually going to spend the next day there and be able to relax and enjoy the day of the eclipse, as well as be a little less rushed to get home. So if I have to suggest any changes to anybody's plans, if you can't next day, just kind of consider traffic is going to be a little difficult.
Oh yeah. You can just see it on Google Maps. Like there have literally been traffic studies done on the eclipse traffic. Like I was looking stuff up and there were literal like studies in journals about the traffic caused by an eclipse, right? I mean, it's wild. And what's funny though is, you know, we're actually planning on leaving on Tuesday, probably super early in the morning on Tuesday. So not on Monday, because almost everybody's going to be traveling on Monday, but we're going to wait till that Tuesday.
So what do you plan to experience different this time?
So, number one, I'm driving. Okay. So I'm actually going to be able to take my telescopes, right? When I flew, I couldn't bring any telescopes. I brought a couple cameras. I think I brought like 3 DSLRs and I brought a couple GoPros, and that's where all of my footage comes from. And this time I can actually have a telescope. Now, which telescope am I going to bring? Am I going to have something? You know, there's all kinds of decisions ahead of me.
Right.
So I don't know exactly, but I do know that I can bring some telescopes with me. Now, that's because I can drive. What that also does is if I need to kind of change where I'm at, I can drive somewhere with the stuff. Now, I don't want to do that. That's like a last ditch effort.
Right.
Because sometimes it kind of clears up right before the eclipse.
That's what I experienced last time. Yep. And I think you had the same experience.
Yeah, it was cloudy, but then what, like 10 minutes before the eclipse?
Yep. It was partial clouds. Yep. I mean, I still got to see the partial phases, but there was cloud cover right before the totality. And then all of a sudden it just opened up perfectly clear. As soon as the totality was over, partial clouds came back in. Once again, as we discussed with Jordan Tellepin, this is actually a known phenomena that he describes in that podcast. So check it out. So where are you going? I know that we had some plans and then they got changed. So do you have a plan?
Wait. Actually, before I get into that, I think we need to take a little break.
When we come back after this short break, we discuss our plans for the April 8th, 2024 total solar eclipse. So one of the big things that people would like to know is what am I going to be doing for the 2024 total solar eclipse? So I have a number of different things here I want to show you, and some just tips and tricks that I've found along the way help quite a bit. The first thing I have here is a dedicated solar telescope, the Eclipse Smart Travel 50mm telescope that is dedicated for astronomy of the sun. And with this type of a telescope, the one thing I find that's kind of helpful that is not included is just a kind of sheet. This is actually a piece of felt, and the felt is a little, thick enough in order to be able to drape it over your head. It does a number of things. It provides you with some additional contrast because you're not having the sunlight from around you while you're looking into the telescope, which is helpful. The other thing it does is it keeps you from accidentally looking towards the sun, because of course that's a bad decision as it can damage your eyes permanently. And over here I have the Ultima 80. The Ultima 80 is a spotting scope, so this could be used terrestrially as well as with this particular solar filter on the front. We have the Eclipse Smart Universal Solar Filter, and what this allows us to do is to use it towards looking at the sun. The cool thing about this is if I just take off this little tape that I have on holding this in place, I can now use it to look at totality when it's actually safe to look at the sun without the solar filter, and then immediately I can put this back on and I can place my tape back down. I recommend using painter's tape because it doesn't leave residue behind and it's meant to be peeled off and won't damage your equipment or leave anything behind. That same universal solar filter, I also have it on my camera and lens as well, so that I can be taking images. I'll likely be mounting this onto a tripod, and that way, once again, once the eclipse hits totality, I can peel off my painter's tape and I can get the image of totality, place it right back on here once we get out of totality and continue shooting images of the partial phases as well. Another thing I'll be bringing along is a colander, because each of these little holes in here is going to act as its own pinhole projector. So during the partial phases of the eclipse, you'll be able to see the little shape of the sun and moon in each of those little holes projected onto the ground or a piece of paper or something. So that's a kind of cool thing. There's a lot of time during those partial phases, so there are a number of items you can be looking at while you're doing the observations of the partial phases through the telescopes. I have an awesome giveaway for you guys. One of you is going to be going home with a 12 by 50 pair of the Eclipse Smart Poro binoculars. These things are awesome. They are meant to look directly at the sun, and they can do this because they have a built-in solar filter in the actual binoculars themselves. It's the point of them, and I really like these. They're super comfortable. And one of the things that you can be doing with this that is awesome, even beyond the eclipse, is the chance to look at the upcoming solar cycle. As we're going into solar maximum, the sun has more sunspots than usual. And as a result, having a pair of binoculars like this allows you to zoom in just enough to be able to see those sunspots easily. And that's really cool, because that's going to be an event that's happening day after day after the eclipse actually happens. But if you are interested in winning these, Celestron is going to be giving these pair away. To enter, visit Celestron on Instagram and click on the Eclipse giveaway post for more details.
I've got some trivia for you.
Excellent.
I got 3 pieces for you. These are new ones. Let's see what you know. The greatest possible duration of a total solar eclipse is how long?
Ooh. I'm not going to go for exact timing because that's difficult, but it's say somewhere around 6 minutes?
7 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. The last one with over 7 minutes was in 1973. All right, second one. It's been calculated that on average, a total solar eclipse is seen from the same place once every how many years?
18.
375.
Oh, I'm thinking Saros cycle. I'm thinking 18 years for the Saros cycle. So you're saying from the exact same place.
From the exact same place.
There's a repeating pattern every 18 years, I believe.
Yeah, there's something
Saros
like
cycle.
that.
Okay. Misunderstood the question.
All right. So last one. Now this is good. You've got a 1 in 12 chance. Based on 5,000 years of eclipse data, the most likely month for a total solar eclipse is which month?
Oh my goodness. Which month? Is it statistically significant, first off? Or is it minor?
I just got these off of a website today, so I did not do any more background research.
I'm going to go with January, simply because it's cold in the northern hemisphere, and it would be just, you know, how it, of course, has to be that they're going to make it one of the worst times of year to have to go out and look at it. Am I right?
Okay, so you're going with the when I buy a telescope, it gets cloudy idea here. Yeah. No, you were very wrong. It is May is the most common month. And November is the least likely.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did it tell you how many, like, there were or anything? It just says how many.
Or at least I didn't look into that part. I do know all the trivia today comes from nationaleclipse.com. So that's where I got it from. And I didn't dive any deeper this time. So,
nice. Okay.
All right. So, you had asked where I was going for the eclipse, right?
Yeah.
Now, my first inclination was Texas, right? Like I actually sat in a coffee shop one day to actually start planning way ahead of time. And I was looking at this and looking at that and way overthinking everything. And I was like, I got to go to Texas. And I didn't say I'd go to Mexico just because I don't feel like doing international travel. That's just a whole extra hurdle. And I don't get that many days off. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go deep in the heart of Texas. I'm going to go as far southwest as I can. And I had a couple ideas. And in fact, I even started to buy tickets. Like I went to buy plane tickets and I was looking for the cheapest thing. I used Google Flights or whatever. And I get it. And I'm like, oh yeah, boom. And I buy the tickets. And it says, nope, those tickets are no longer available. I was like, what? There's no way. No way. Because it took me 2 minutes to fill out the stuff. So I did it again, but I went super duper fast. Less than like a minute later, I had everything up there. Boom. Buy the tickets. They're not available anymore. I don't know. Maybe I'm not as tech savvy as I thought I was. Something going on there.
Maybe it was a sign.
Maybe it was. But then, so that frustrated the heck out of me. So I was just done, tired. So then I was like, you know what, Danielle, I need some help planning this thing. And so we sit down and we figured out like, maybe with the tight turnaround and having to be back at school, maybe air travel is not the way to go.
Right. Yeah. I kind of think that was a good decision.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. Maybe I just don't think about the possible consequences of actions that I take, but you know, I did have my heart set on that, but she made good points. And I think overall she's right. Like, let's drive. And so we're going to drive to Ohio. We're going to go somewhere around Cleveland on the western side. And because we saw that that's the area. Oh, by the way, Texas, the reason I was picking Texas was because it had the least percentage of clouds. It was like only a 40% chance of clouds. Yeah.
That's why I avoided the Northeast. I was originally going to go to the Adirondacks and I was going to try to spend time there. And I had even discussed it with some people from up in the Adirondack region. They're hosting a big event in the Adirondack Public Observatory, I believe it's called. But I ended up going to Richmond, Indiana for the same reasons, because as you go farther towards the south and west, the chances of cloud cover is less. And so I went about as far as I was willing to go. And that's where I ended up. So Richmond, Indiana, once again, just like last time, I'm doing a campground. This time I am bringing the RV.
Nice.
And as I said at the beginning, I'm bringing my family with me. We will have air conditioning. And the campsite that I got is actually at the northernmost point of the campground. And it faces over a pond that they have. So I can kind of like look out and over the pond from my campsite. And hopefully that gives me a clear view to the south.
Yeah. Southwest. Yeah.
Right.
Nice. I like that. I like that idea. Now, are you thinking that you may have to pick up and go travel, or are you?
I refuse. I'm gonna hunker down and cross my fingers with the trailer and my son and just all that comes along with my setup that I'm gonna want to do. I just can't see the frustration of trying to pick up and move last minute.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hunker down.
That's very smart. I know. I remember, like, I think 24 hours out, I was kind of on the edge in South Carolina. I was kind of like, it might get cloudy tomorrow. It might do this. Should I move? And I'm so glad I didn't, because I could as I said before, like, everything is just nice and easy there. There's very little. I feel like the juice isn't worth the squeeze for the most part. I think that makes a lot of sense.
When we talked to Gordon Telepin, who's got numbers of these under his belt, he's saying like 500 miles minimum to get a real, chance of actually getting significantly different weather options.
Yeah.
I'm not driving 500 extra miles. And he said days in advance, make your call, which of the two sites you're going to go to in advance. And I can't see booking yet another location or trying to end up on the side of a road or something. So this way I can enjoy it. And if it's cloudy, and I'll still enjoy my family and my trip.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, that even though he was 3 years old, he still remembers so much about that. I mean, it's such a good experience with the family. You're gonna love that. It's gonna be fantastic. Now we also decided again this time to do an Airbnb, but we had some tough issues with that. I had actually it was just tough because there's so many options, and like you kind of got to see their backyard, and you know, not all of them have pictures of the outside. And
Right.
we even finally sat down for like a whole day, whittling it down from like 50 down to 25, down to 10, down to the top two. Let's make this choice. And we booked it. We had a place. And then the next day I'm in the grocery store with my son and I get a message on my phone that says, "Oh, hey, I'm really sorry, but the property was already booked on another platform."
That's not fun.
That's terrible. Like, I never get angry, but I was so angry at that time. I never did tell him off because I'm a good person, I guess. I don't know. But that was just that I had that weight lifted off my shoulders because we booked it, and then it just boom, came right back down. And I was like,
So I don't you told me all this, but I didn't know that you had found another place. So
yes, we did
hear
find
about it.
Yeah, we did find another place. It's actually in a nice in a neighborhood where I think the people in the neighborhood are planning to leave and get out instead of experience it. But it's going to be a nice house, and it's on like 3 acres. So I'm going to have my choice of places to set up.
Wow.
Yeah, there are some trees, but you know, there's trees everywhere. It looked like there was plenty of open space. Just a beautiful house, and yeah, it's going to be even better, I think, than last time, assuming that the clouds aren't there. And yeah, now we are booking a hotel as a backup too.
Oh, okay.
And we're finding places that can, you know, you can cancel like up to a week beforehand without a cancellation fee.
Wow, that's surprising because I know a lot of the places that I've looked at were very much like I had to book for, I believe it was 4 nights minimum because they knew what was coming. I'm getting a t-shirt, by the way, with mine. You know, my campground is providing us t-shirts. They already contacted me and asked me what sizes we needed. And
wow.
So they're preparing something pretty cool. I think I may have mentioned that I kind of know what I'm doing, but I'm trying not to get too involved. I'm gonna like enjoy it for myself. I don't want to be there as a hired help that paid to be there. Let me stay for free and I'll give you a talk, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I really don't want to be known for knowing what I'm talking about. I want to just kind of go under the radar here, and unlike last time where I was presenting during this thing, I want to just kind of hang out and enjoy it.
You know what? You still are going to present, but you're going to be presenting to your son, and that's going to be way more rewarding than anything else. So that's So what equipment are you going to bring? Because I've got some things in my head as far as what I'm going to do. I'm curious, since you're going to have the RV, you can bring a ton of equipment, but you only want to manage so much. So like what's your plan?
Well, okay. So kind of cool thing about a new moon is not only are you going to have the eclipse, but that same night, the potential for the darkest night of the entire month, the new moon, is also there. So I'm trying to make sure that I have not only the equipment for solar, but also some equipment for nighttime observing as well. I don't really often get an opportunity with my kid to look at the night sky, as horrible as that is, because of school nights and things like that.
They got to go to bed at some point,
right? And as a result, especially during the summer when I'm off, it gets dark very late and is not really conducive to proper bedtime. So I'm gonna keep them up, and we're gonna look at the night sky hopefully. And so I'm gonna bring, I think it's gonna be the Evo 8 from Celestron, the solar filter, fits right over the top of it. I've done a few videos on my channel for YouTube. If you're interested in checking it out. But the nice thing I like about that is it's all self-contained. It has like its built-in battery and all that kind of stuff. And as simple as possible, but with the most capability, I think. So that's one. And they have a little cool travel tripod I'm going to bring.
Okay.
which makes it all real compact. You know, you sit it on top of like a picnic table or something. There's some solar binoculars that I'm going to bring along as well.
Oh, those are good. Those are good. Now, are those the ones? There's solar binoculars. Let me tell you one thing. Let me tell you one thing about that, though. Especially if you're going to have your boy look through them. And I've got a little terrible pair right here, but like they'll block out the sun, which is good. But you got to make sure that your son isn't looking into the sun when he's lining it up. Right. So what I did is I took a pizza box and I cut out eye holes and I shoved this in the pizza box. So he had a whole shade around him, but so that he couldn't damage his eyes. Like it actually worked out really, really well. And it was just a greasy pizza box.
That's a good idea. So that I think, the binoculars and the telescope with the solar filter on the front that I can also take off then at night to do, visual observations, of just nighttime stuff. Of course, Eclipse glasses, right? Just the regular old Eclipse shades. And beyond that, I think I'm going to try to travel pretty light. I'm going to send some stuff your way, to check out. So, I want to make sure I keep the load as light as possible. And I really want to focus on the experience, itself.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to be doing a whole lot of images this time.
Oh, see, I think I'm going to go
the video, but I don't know if I want to go crazy with like astrophotography for the actual eclipse itself. Unless I can get it automated like you had it last time where it handles most of it, because I was doing it all manually last time. And it would be one thing if it were just me, but with my family along, I want to focus on that in addition to viewing it myself.
You got to have as much automatic as possible. Absolutely. Right. I'll share it. It might be a PC only thing. I'll have to look into that for you. See if it'll work. But yeah, I know I'm planning on having a ton of cameras and a ton of stuff set up. But again, all in advance.
I say all this and it probably will end up that I have a lot more than I planned. Just last minute, I'll decide that I want to do a bunch of stuff. But yeah, if you can put that also in the show notes, that'd be great. If you have a link.
Yeah. I'll have to see
the automatic stuff. So I'm gonna push you right there, Rob, that don't wait till the last minute astronomer, because we want everybody else to be able to plan for this event, including myself.
Oh, I know. I do need. I'm working. I'm doing my best. All right. It's just some things. Just you don't do it till you feel like the intense pressure, and for some reason I'm not feeling the intense pressure yet, which I need to.
Coming soon.
I need to make myself feel that. But yeah, no, I know I'm thinking I'll do something similar to last time, where I have at least one camera for the partial phases, just dedicated, one camera for totality, zoomed in, a GoPro to do the time lapse, or another camera to do the time lapse. That was fun to be able to just speed it up, and not full video. I'm definitely going to have a 360 GoPro and one of my 360 cameras so I can get footage for a planetarium type show. And I know I want to record audio. That was a thing that I definitely made sure of last time. I wanted to get my audio with a lapel mic, and I wanted to get my wife and my kids' reactions as we were going.
Yes,
and it worked out really well.
Reactions are awesome. I've got a reaction video that is super embarrassing. But it was because I was that excited. I was like screaming at the top of my lungs and just in awe. And it's so over the top that it's embarrassing, but it's the real reaction. It was that crazy cool.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's like I said, it's like there's a black hole up in the sky, right? And there's just brightness around. It's just otherworldly, you know? I mean, I can see why eclipses have been known as these like portents of bad luck and bad omens and all that. Like that, it's pretty wild to see your source of life just bloop, just bloop out of existence for a bit, you know?
So I think, you know, all in all, I really want to make sure that in 2024, I'm present. That's my goal, is to be present and really try to take in that experience and, like you said, automate whatever I can automate so that I can do that.
Right. Yeah. And just, you know, hope that the clouds don't come. And, you know, I also, I need to put that in the back of my mind. Like, that's a possibility. Right. And I need to be able to prepare myself so that I don't like really feel terrible when that happens. You know what I mean? Like, It's always a possibility, you know, and we will always have 2017, but you know.
Well, if you're going for a backup plan with a backup hotel, have a backup plan, I guess, for if that eventuality happens, and you'll be ready to go then.
Yeah.
And you can feel like you're prepared for it. You know, I think the coolest part about this particular eclipse is the proximity then to Neef. With, you know, being that Northeast Astronomical Forum is coming a week or I guess 2 weeks after the eclipse. I think the buzz at that conference is going to be really exciting, you know, and a lot of the people that we know from the industry and from our hobby are going to be there. And I think who's going to have a chance to go see this is going to be just talking about what they did and how awesome it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say also for people who do want to take pictures and stuff,
you can use a telescope or a pair of binoculars with the smartphone adapters, and you can actually place that through the eyepiece of the telescope or binocular, and you can actually get a pretty decent image then once you're magnified.
And also, I'd say, I know I'm guilty of this with my astrophotography and stuff. Like, I often see what other people are doing online, and I think, man, there's no way I can do that. And to be honest, it's kind of true. There's no way that I can do that with the current time and stuff I have, right? Like certain types of pictures. But, you know, I would encourage you, try to go in with a mindset of, I'm going to get a picture, plan something out ahead of time and get a decent picture that is yours. You don't have to do the ultra dynamic range composite and learn Photoshop. Like, don't put that pressure on yourself to do the amazing thing that other amazing astrophotographers do. Like, just go with what you know and can do, and just get something that is good and is yours that you can value and keep for the future. Like that's just my advice, I think. What do you think?
To dovetail on that, you said, you know, don't worry about all of that, like Photoshop and all that. If you get good quality data, you don't need to learn how to do all of that immediately. So I would focus, if you're new to taking photos, or just taking photos of like astronomy type events, is just focus on the actually capturing the image part of it as the thing to do. And you can actually practice in advance of the eclipse with just the sun. If you have the proper solar filters and everything already, right? You can practice on the actual sun and get used to what to do. And kind of, if you get the solar eclipse timer app, it even gives you some options where you can simulate what that would look like. And I highly recommend to go through that practice run days, weeks in advance of the actual eclipse, if you can help it. And that way, when you get to the actual event, you're not fumbling around, worried about settings while you're trying to enjoy this amazing experience you just drove or flew, or, you know, put lots of time and energy into trying to plan out, to just change your ISO to the proper setting. Like, that's not what you want to be doing. So take the time to practice.
Yeah. How much totality are you getting? I think I'm getting, if I remember, 3.5 minutes.
That's about what I'm at. 3.5 minutes or so. 3 minutes.
There's actually not much of a change.
Like
yeah, there's not much of a change as you go from Texas to Cleveland. Like, I think Texas might be 4 minutes, and Cleveland's like 3 minutes and 20 or 3.5. Like, it's not that much. The biggest problem is going sideways.
Of course.
But even that, you've got a good corridor.
Yeah, I'm very, very close to the center line where I'm at.
Right. But yeah, this is looking to be pretty awesome if the weather works out. I mean, even so, it's going to be fun to get out there and plan stuff, and actually like get something that we can bring home. That's what I'm hoping for. It shouldn't be too hot. The Midwest in April should still be fairly cool. Let's hope, but not snowy.
Here's an interesting question.
Yeah.
What are you going to eat on the day of the eclipse?
You know what? I'll probably just get like some kind of burrito from someplace local. That's the part about the traveling that I really, really like, is finding some local places, finding like a good hoagie place. Or I guess they call them heroes out there or something. I'm not sure. But like just finding something local, something good, and like experiencing the culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, like in South Carolina, go to the market, see what kind of eclipse themed stuff people are selling and made in anticipation, and actually get into that culture.
When we come back after this short break, Rob tries one last time to stump me on Eclipse trivia.
Get Eclipse ready with the Celestron Eclipse Smart Travel Scope 50, a 50mm solar telescope with tripod and backpack. Or reach for Eclipse Smart solar binoculars with up to 20 times magnification. You can even add an Eclipse Smart solar filter to your Celestron nighttime telescope. They're available in 14 different sizes. All Celestron Eclipse Smart products conform to the current ISO safety standards. Learn more at celestron.com/eclipsewatch.
As we're winding this down, I've got 3 landing trivia for you. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So this goes in, slightly different areas. I'll start with this one. How about the earliest known record of a solar eclipse? How old do you think it is? And where do you think it was?
Oh my goodness. I would imagine that the Maya would have had some experience with an eclipse, and I know that they were very much in tune with the astronomical events. I believe that they would predate anything Chinese. I know Chinese kept very good records. The Egyptians, I think they would even predate Egyptians. I don't know an actual date, but I'm going to go with the Maya.
I don't think that's a bad choice, but it is not correct, according to nationaleclipse.com. They say that it was made in ancient Ireland over 5,000 years ago.
Stonehenge like areas. Yeah.
I bet you the Celts were really active, I guess, at that time, really popular.
Well, that's like 10,000 or so.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
I'm looking it up.
This is it's interesting. Like, here's the thing. Like, I pull these together, the trivia together, and I always want to go a little bit deeper. But even this, it surprises you.
So according to EnglishHeritage.org, the history of Stonehenge about 5,000 years ago.
There you go. That's what this was saying too. So Stonehenge time. Yep.
Wow.
Fantastic. All right, let's get off of this planet. Okay.
All right.
Jupiter. How often does a total solar eclipse occur on Jupiter?
What would be causing a total solar eclipse on Jupiter?
Mm-hmm.
You have moons, but are they sufficiently large to completely cover the sun? I guess expect that they would be, and Jupiter's moon, Callisto, Europa, and Ganymede. I'm guessing it would
keep going.
every day or two.
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. On Jupiter, they occur every 42 hours.
Day or two. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I thought you were going way off for a little while there. It sounded like you were. Where does a solar eclipse? Well, they have moons. Come on, Dave. You've seen this. You see a shadow transit?
I thought. Well, that's exactly right. Right.
Yeah.
And I do a lab with students where they're watching the orbital timings and periods of the different orbits of the different moons, and they go at different rates, and I know that the closest one is about 2 days to go around. So
you got it. And the planet's so big that like you always get an eclipse.
Right.
Like, you're never not going to get an eclipse. And, if you have a sky and telescope, you can just look and see, or any kind of magazine, you could look it up online. You can see exactly when those transits are going to occur. It's really cool. I mean, I've seen it a couple times in my telescope, and I'm like, hey, I'm seeing a total solar eclipse on Jupiter right now. From Earth. But Earth. How many can occur at the same time?
4.
3. This says 3. I was thinking 4 too. This might require some extra work.
I would imagine that one of the moons is sufficiently far that the umbra doesn't reach the surface of Jupiter. So it might be a penumbral partial eclipse, but not totality.
Yeah.
So the cone of the umbra never reaches the surface of the actual, cloud tops, not necessarily surface, but the cloud tops of Jupiter.
Yeah. Now, before I go into the next one, the last one, before I do that, when is the next total solar eclipse in America? Oh no, I stumped him. I thought he was going to have this one.
I believe in the 2040s.
Yes. Now there is I think an annular in 44, but the next total solar eclipse is in 2045.
Wow.
So we got another 21 years before we get a good, and that one's going to be a lot like the 2017 eclipse. Going from left to right, from top left to bottom right. Now, so get out there now, because you're not going to see one until 2045. Now, what we also know is that the moon is slowly moving away from the Earth, right? And because it's moving further away, the moon's going to get smaller in the sky, and eventually we will no longer have eclipses, total solar eclipses on Earth. How many years in the future is that likely to happen?
First instinct is to say it's going to be very, very far, but we are at the point where the moon at its closest point is covering up the sun, but at its farthest point, it's no longer covering up the sun. It's an annular eclipse. So Earth, it's very difficult because this is a as it gets farther away, the influence becomes less and less and less, and it's like a limit, like a calculus limit. So let's say 1 billion years.
You are not quite right, but I'll say actually kind of in the right realm. 500 to 600 million years.
Okay.
So you doubled it, but we're talking about huge time scales, so I'm cool with that.
I was trying to figure out, because like I said, it's a limit, in calculus, and so as you get farther away, the effect is less gravitationally, and as a result, the relationship where the moon is picking up or speed because it's taking away, the Earth's slowing down in its rotation, scrubbing away the energy from the Earth's rotation to cause the moon to leave. And so as you get farther away, that effect becomes less, and so the speed at which it moves away is slower rate over time. So that's like really difficult to figure out. I kind of was backtracking in my mind because I know the moon was very close initially, early in its formation, but that effect would be very, very great early on, and then has dissipated over the last 3.5-4 billion years. So yeah, that's an interesting an interesting question. If you're still listening and like this podcast, please consider becoming one of our Patreon patrons. Memberships start as low as $3 per month, with benefits including opportunities to ask questions of our guests. Also, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast to help us bring the universe even closer than you think.